go. Looks good. Looks good. How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Woodshop Live. I'm Jay, your host, and tonight we are here in the woodshop, and I'm trying something different tonight with the camera. I'm trying it. I'm using the iPhone 15 Pro Max, and normally I will use the camera, the selfie camera. But when you do that on YouTube live streaming, it reverses everything. I'm getting kind of tired of that, so I'm running it with the normal camera, but I can't see the screen. So I'm going to be using a separate monitor that's actually watching the stream to make it to see what you can see. How's it going? Hope you're doing well. Thank you for tuning in. This is Woodshop Live. This is our seventh live stream here from the garage. Really, it's the garage, not the woodshop, but it's as close as we can get. And tonight I want to talk to you about finishing. Finishing is one of those things that's really kind of important for your woodworking, and there's so many options. It's so bewildering, all the options that are out there. And the question is, how do you choose which finish to use? And you'll watch a lot of YouTubers and other woodworkers, you'll talk to them, and they all have their particular likes and dislikes, and they'll have superlatives and absolutes, and they'll tell you this finish is the best finish. And it's like, okay, well, is it really? Because, if you watch YouTube, woodworkers, you see a lot of Rubio monocoat, and I've never used Rubio monocoat. I don't even have a place that sells Rubio monocoat near me. The nearest place that I can buy Rubio monocoat is at the Woodcraft in Rockville, and that's like an hour and 10-minute drive, when my local Woodcraft is 15 minutes away. So I kind of, if you don't have things like, you see the Rubio on the videos, and you're like, oh man, maybe I should try that, but if you can't get it, don't sweat it. And I haven't sweated it. Like one of the guys that I know, Kevin, he buys it from somewhere. He's actually here in Baltimore, and he loves it. He loves it. I haven't talked to him too much about it, but I know he likes to use it mostly, and then maybe even put a little bit of nano coating on top of it. But I haven't used it, and I think that there's a lot of great products out there. What I hear about Rubio is that you mix it, and then if you don't use it all, it hardens, and you can't. It just wastes. So it's like, oh, I don't like that idea, because I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to be that accurate in how much I'm going to be using. So it's much easier for me to use other finishes. And I think probably something that people say that is very similar to Rubio monocoat is Osmo Poly X. This is the Poly X oil. This is their really small can. It's like $21. When I first tried Osmo Prez over at Woodcraft here in Timonium, told me, hey, why don't you give this a try? I was refinishing a coffee knockbox with bubinga wood, and I was like, I'd never used it. And I was really, really green to all of this, so I was like, okay, I'll give it a try. What I had really been using for the last couple of years in different projects is something called, what's it called? It's Waterlocks Original, and that is a polymerized tung oil that has a heavy-duty coating, and we've used it in coffee shop, bar tops, and it's impervious. Like, I couldn't believe how amazing it is. Josh over at Free State Timbers here in Timonium, who a few years ago recommended that to me when I was building a Paddock bar top, and we left water on it, hot stuff. It never clouded, it never stayed, it never damaged. I was like, wow, this is really crazy. Like, I couldn't believe it. So if you're looking for something super impervious for like wet environments, I found really great results with Waterlocks, and I was a big proponent of Waterlocks as a very like tough and durable, hardened kind of like protectant for wood for many, many years. And as I got more into the fine woodworking or finer woodworking and getting into furniture making, my perspective changed, because I wanted to try other things. And so some of the finishes that are available out there, there's Osmo Poly X, and then one day, actually my whole journey really started because I was down in Old Town Alexandria, heading to a cigar shop for one of our cigar live streams. And as I was walking down the street, I saw in the alleyway there was this mid-century modern dining chair, just kind of by the trash can and discarded. It had like, the cloth top and everything, and I was like, oh, that's kind of an awesome looking chair. And I can't believe that someone's throwing it away. So when I come back later tonight, if it's still there, it's coming home with me. When I came back around 1 a.m., there it was, still sitting by the dumpster, and I was like, oh, take that home. So I brought it home. It turns out it was an Eric Buick Model 49 chair from the 1960s, and in teak. And I was like, and this is where it really started. I was like, okay, I'm gonna remake this chair. I'm gonna, clean it up, reupholster it, and then refinish it and all that. And I was planning to refinish it, strip it. And I went to the Woodcraft, and I spoke to Paul, and Paul turns out is a refinishing expert. And he was like, man, if you just want something really simple, try this, the Restore Finish from Howard Products. And I tried it, and it cleaned up the scratches. It made it look really nice. It was a really simple way. So if you're trying to restore, like scratch furniture or something like that, and you don't want to go through all of this rigmarole that we would do normally, this might be a good first step. Like, you could give it a try, pick this up. It's like maybe $15, I think, or $20 for the can, and you basically wipe it on, and it does its work. And they have different mahogany, cherry. There are different types of what do you call it? Of finishing colors. And the one that on my Eric Buick, it looked great. It looked great. I was like, oh, I'm finished. I don't need to do anything else, because I thought that maybe I would have to strip it down, resand everything, and then find some kind of coating, and I'd use this, and it turned out pretty well. Now that project is still sitting in the living room in pieces. Not in pieces, but all the seat and the back have been removed, and it's just sitting there waiting for me to actually redo it. I've been building everything else, just not that. But it looks fairly nice. I mean, there's part of me that's like, I should re-strip it. I should strip it down. But then now my personal thoughts on furniture have changed since that time. So I don't think that's the route we're going to go at the end of the day. But moving on, you've got things like, let's say if you wanted to do like a cutting board, right? Like, I've got a cutting board here that I've been working on. Something small, something simple, something like this, right? This is maple with walnut and cherry, just offcuts that I had lying around, and I was just kind of like threw them together, glued them up, and just like, it's a little cutting board, right? It's a little cutting board. But what would you put on something like this? You can put different types of finishes on there. One of the nice things to consider is this Howard cutting board oil. All this really is mineral oil, food grade mineral oil. And while this is a little tiny jug of maybe 2 ounces. This is probably 2 ounces. $3.49 at the Woodcraft. It's perfectly fine. You just kind of, and it's really easy to do. You basically lay it on, let it soak in, and you can lay it on really thick. You don't have to be nice about it. You have to be careful. Just spread it on there, let it soak in, and then maybe 20 minutes later, wipe off the excess. And the nice thing about the mineral, it's pretty much ready to go. At that point, you can start using it. It's food safe. It is really a really great way to go. And I just refinished a cutting board that I made that last November that I was looking at the other day, and it was looking kind of like dull. It was all kind of like, looking kind of weathered. And I was like, oh man, let me just took 180 grit sandpaper, sanded it down, put this Howard stuff on it, and beautiful again. It's beautiful again. I was using it on the live stream last weekend. If you look on the Ono Coffee channel, which is the main channel, if you look there on the live streams, there's a live stream from last week that we did that uses the cutting board several times. You can see it's really nicely looking in it. And it's a really easy coating to put on. So super easy finishing. Like, you don't really have to think too much. Wipe it on as much as you want, maybe, and then wipe off the excess, and then you're ready to go. And because, like I said, it's food safe, so you can, once you coat it, you can start using it right away. You don't have to wait. Like with other finishes, you have to wait God knows how long. It all depends on the finish. But that's a great way to go, and it's food safe. And now if you $3.49, that's not that bad. And I've actually used this on a couple cutting boards, and I haven't run out of it. I've been thinking about buying more. You can go to like a feed store, like a horse or livestock feed store, and ask them about mineral oil. And typically what they're giving to the animals is definitely food grade, because what they're using it is as a laxative for the animals to, in case the animals have constipation, they want them to be regular, then they will give them some mineral oil to help with that. And that is fairly affordable. Like I was looking at a place here called The Mill up in Hereford, not too far from where I live, and it's $24 for a gallon. So I was like, oh. When I need to refill, I'm going to go pick that up. So that's one way to go. Another thing for butcher blocks or cutting boards, they have this, Howard makes this butcher block conditioner that it has mineral oil. It's mineral oil and waxes, so it's a lot more, you know, it's more yellow and more pasty. And that's another thing about the mineral. The mineral oil is clear, so you're not going to get everything else gives kind of a yellow tint to the wood. This will not. I mean, this mineral oil will not. This one that has the beeswax or whatever the wax they're using it will have some color, some light coloration, not a lot, but just there's always a little bit of coloration happening. That's something to consider. Like if you wanted to not have to recoat it with just pure mineral oil, you can use this butcher block conditioner. You know, maybe once a month is just rub it on and wipe off any excess and continue on about it. Now, one of the things about cutting boards that you might consider is I was listening to a podcast, the Shop Talk Live from Fine Woodworking. About a year ago, they came out with an interview with what do they call her, Dr. Tree or something like Dr. something. She's a forestry expert, a tree expert from Oregon, and she was talking about how cutting boards really don't need to be coated, and I think there's something to be said there. So what happens is we coat our cutting boards with whatever coating or finish we're trying to do, and we're sealing the pores of the wood because we want to protect the wood. We don't want the bacteria going in the wood. We don't want food particulates going in the wood. Well, really, food particulates are too big to fall inside pores of the wood, right? But what she was saying is that if you leave your cutting boards natural, what happens is any kind of bacteria that's on the surface of your fruit or that's coming from your fruit will actually be absorbed into like the pores of the wood, and because wood has an anaerobic environment, those bacteria will be pulled in and die. Now, which is actually its natural state of being, so it's actually protecting us from bacteria, and by coating it, the bacteria that's maybe on your produce or whatever, whatever bacteria may be on your produce, is now lying on the surface because it has nowhere to go because the surface is sealed, and then it can transfer to other foods. So you can actually get better transfer of bacteria, cross-contamination of foods by coating your board. So there's something to consider. Now, of course, uncoated boards, like if you have these walnut, kind of things with maple and all that, and they start to wear, the walnut gets a little bit weathered looking. It's not as beautiful for the dining table, so you'll have to balance your health versus your vanity. Now, another finish you can use is wax, right? Just straight up wax. This is Carnauba wax, deep crystal from Meguiar's. This is actually something I have from my cars, from polishing cars. We just put this on your car. You can put this on wood too. Just the Carnauba wax is just natural. You wipe it on, and it coats your wood and seals the pores, similar to what this is doing without the mineral oil. And one of the nice things about having this around the shop is that you can also I also use this paste wax to coat any kind of cast iron surface that would normally rust. So if I don't have a table saw that's cast iron, but like the table saw, the bandsaw and the drill press, they're all cast iron. So I'll use this to coat those. You see a lot of these woodworkers, they talk about, the Johnson paste wax. And Johnson paste wax had a nice product, but since they're no longer in business, what good does that do us? Any wax will, honestly, any wax will do. Like they say keep the ones with the silicone out, but pretty much we're really just trying, in this particular case of the steel, we're just trying to protect the steel. So whatever coating is fine. And this is this is one way to go. You can use any wax. There's so many waxes out there. Beeswax is another choice. Paraffin wax could be something. I don't know if that's really a great choice, but to each his own, Like I said, we talked about the Osmo Poly X. That's a really nice finish. I really like that. And then there's something here that Paul over at Woodcraft, like I said, he's the finishing expert. He was like, his favorite thing is Tried and True. And Tried and True Original is, what is it? It is actually a polymerized linseed oil and beeswax. And so what is this we're going to hear that a couple times. Polymerized linseed oil, polymerized tung oil. Well, what they're doing, from what I've gathered, they're taking the oil and they're heating it. Now, let's say if you do cooking at home and you're like, let's say you want to make some French fries and you want it to So you put your peanut oil or maybe whatever oil you're putting into it, and you're heating it up, and you're heating up, and it starts to smoke because you're getting close to the smoke. You're at the smoking point. It's reaching a point of smoking, and then if you keep heating, it will ignite, and then you'll have a big problem. What they're doing is something similar. They're heating the oil, and I'm presuming that they're heating the oil not as fast as we would on the stovetop. They're actually heating it very, very slowly over time, and they're reaching a point where they have some kind of conversions. The guys at Sutherland was explaining to me that they bring it to the point where it's about to gel. So since they said they bring it to the point that it's about to gel, I'm presuming that they're taking pure tung oil. And pure tung oil overall is fairly viscous compared to, let's say, cooking oils. And I think that they're probably, because they said it's about to gel, this probably, that really indicated to me that they're slowly heating it to the perfect temperature before they stop. And so they'll heat it to a certain point, stop, and that polymerizes it. And in the case of tried and true, they take that hot oil and they mix it with beeswax, and that's what makes their formulation. And then you basically just take it out and you rub it on and rub off any excess. It's really, a lot of these are very simple. You just rub it on, wipe off excess after like 15 minutes, and you're pretty much done. You don't have to do too much. You just gotta wait. Sometimes it's just about waiting. So that's the tung oil. Another thing that we're gonna look at is some urethanes. So we've got a couple of urethanes here. The first one is this General Finishes High Performance Satin. I like the satin. I use this for a couple things. You know, if you want to get into polyurethanes, this is going to be one of the better choices. You could go to Home Depot and Lowe's and buy some of the stuff that they have there, but they're, you know, I don't know. I've used them in the past. And you know, I guess they're, what am I saying? They're probably, depending on your purpose, if you're just building like carpentry stuff, like with pine and like very simple kind of, like if I was building this little frame for this power board that I have, you know, with actual like switches and stuff on it, I would probably use something like that if I needed to. I'll use this because we already have it. But you know, this is a basic polyurethane, water-based, and I like, when it comes to polyurethanes, I want water-based because if I'm going to have brushes, I want to be able to wash them easier. I don't want to muck with it. And actually now I'm at the point where I'm really buying a lot of foam brushes, you know, the cheap foam brushes. Like these, because you know, if I can get away with it, I'm just gonna toss it. I'm not gonna have to clean it. I really, you know, I've done a lot of painting with latex paints, like from Sherwin-Williams, and have really nice quality brushes. But you're gonna sit there for like, you know, 10 minutes cleaning them, each one, and it's like, this is just so much. You just, and then toss it, and you know, just make sure that you're not getting all these oils built up and they're gonna ignite in your trash can. That would not be a fun thing. So so polyurethanes would be General Finishes is good. When you want to get to something a little more esoteric, like Mohawk Industries is another company that makes different types of finishes. Typically these are more high-end professional level finishes that are much more difficult to get. Some finishes out there in the world you kind of have to be licensed. Like if you went to Sherwin-Williams and you said you want a particular finish, they would want you to be certified that you have an actual facility for proper ventilation, because some of them are very, very high in the VOCs and very, very toxic to humans. So you have to have the right ventilation, you have to have the right spray booth, you have to have the right, you know, garments, you have to have the right kind of respirators to use with those products. So you don't really want to get into that kind of thing unless you're really professional and you've got a reason for it. One of the things that kind of skirts along that edge, I think is right on the edge, is this one from Mohawk. It's called a Rock Hard Urethane Varnish. I've only used this very little because what I was looking for was something that was very clear for a table that I have in mind, a maple and coir wood table, that I really didn't want to have any yellowing of the maple. I wanted it to be as white as possible. And Ryan over at Woodcraft was like, use this. This will probably be the best thing for you to use. That's an actual finish rather than just a simple like mineral oil. So at some point I will finally get to try this. But Mohawk Industries is a very high-end kind of finishing company. This one, as you can see on the back here, it's got a lot of red labels. And that means, you know, high VOCs, high flammability, you know, danger. Will Robinson is definitely the hallmark of the day. Now, finally, we're going to move into what has really been kind of intriguing me these past few months. I was not too long ago. A friend of mine, Matt, was talking about a guy named George Nakashima. He was telling me like, oh, there's this guy named Nakashima, blah 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 blah, and he does really nice furniture. I think you would like it. And I was like, okay. And I never really knew much about him, so I was like, oh, okay, cool. And then one day, some other friends were like talking about him, and I was like, and so I started reading, and I was like, oh, he has some interesting philosophies, and he's a furniture maker from the mid-century modern era. And I think that he's the kind of person that, he was from that era, but if you were alive today and you were to describe him as a mid-century modern designer, I think he'd be mad. I think he would get pissed off, like, don't call me that. Like, I stand apart from those guys. I think that's how he is. That's, at least, especially since that's how I am as a barista. Like, I'm part of the third wave, but I'm a part of the third wave, I think, But what I liked about I liked his philosophy about not just the design, but also finishing. He was very much into tongue oils and natural finishing, and allowing the piece to live with whatever family that owned it. And as it got dirty or whatever, damaged or scratched, that was part of the history of that, part of this history of the piece, part of the story of the family. And I was like, I like that. I don't really necessarily like the idea of hard coating something in plastic or polyurethane. Like, that's not really what I like. Like in my ukulele here, this is a Koa ukulele made in 1992 by Kamaka Ukulele in Honolulu. And I was looking at it, and like the soundboard is even 30 some years later, it's very, very finished. And I'm wondering like what kind of it seems like a polyurethane to me. And I'm like, oh, I mean, it's held up. Don't get me wrong. Look at this. It's held up well, but it is. I don't know if for me today, I don't know if I like this kind of finish on projects. I think I prefer a little bit more. I feel like I'm more in line with the more natural type of approach, and so I've been using this Wood River tongue oil, pure tongue oil. Now, if you go out there to like Home Depot and stuff, you'll see like companies, Watco, I think is the name. Some companies that'll say their tongue oil finishes, especially the ones that come in metal cans that are like big versions of this. Those are not pure tongue oil. Those are tongue oils that are polymerized and mixed in with all kinds of spirits to make it easier to apply, and so that it dries better or faster. Better meaning faster. The one thing about tongue oil, I love the color of tongue oil. Like, this is a table I made a few months ago in cherry. This is a local cherry from just right around where I live here in Baltimore, from a local farmer who harvests and mills his wood, Andrew Easter. And it turned out to be a beautiful, beautiful cherry. I love the color, I love the depth. And so I did a couple coats of tongue oil, and the depth of the grain has just improved over time. It's gotten deeper. It got deeper over the first few couple months of the table, and I was just like, wow, I really, really like that. Now here's the problem, and tongue oil is really easy. You pour this on, and you don't have to be sparingly. You don't have to do it sparingly. You can put it on really hard and heavy, and you just let it soak in, and you wipe it back off. Wait 15 minutes, and you wipe off any excess, and you're pretty much done. The problem is that it takes a long time to cure. Anywhere between 7 to 10 to up to 14 days for one coat to cure. So you have to wait up to 2 weeks for the next coat. So it's a very long process. So it's not necessarily great for production, because now you finish this piece, and what I would do is I would have to take this piece and put it inside the house and just let it sit there for a week or two, and before coming back to it, and then sometimes you got to remember, oh, I got to come back to this. It's already been 3 weeks. But I think the juice is worth the squeeze, right? It just takes a long time. So yeah, I really like it. I've done a couple things in cherry and walnut with tongue oil, and again, it's super easy to use. It just takes a long time. Now the next thing I guess the last finish that I really have to talk about here tonight is something that I found back in April. In April, I went up to Manchester, Connecticut to attend the Fine Woodworking New England event that was being held by Fine Woodworking magazine. And it's a little tiny event that Bob Van Dyke has at his Connecticut Valley School of Woodworking, which I had only discovered recently, and I was totally like, wow, this is amazing. And they bring in all of these famous, turns out they're famous woodworkers, people like Tim Coleman, Michael Cullen, they were all there, and I'm talking to them, asking them questions, and relating to them, and I have no idea who they are. Like I don't have a reference point to their famosity, right? Like they're famous at woodworking, but since I'm new to woodworking overall, it means nothing. It would be like if I had just moved to America and I met Keanu Reeves hanging out at the airport, like, hey, what's your name? I'm Keanu. Oh, cool, man, nice to meet you. And we're hanging out talking and hanging out for an afternoon, but I have no idea that he's like one, super famous, right? But really nice people. Everyone's really great. Dave Doyard was another person I watched who I really enjoyed. But one of the things that I saw, they had a small like trade show. Oneida, Bad Axe, Saws was there. There was a couple other people that were there that unfortunately I can't. Oh, Borders and Tenon magazine had a booth. Nice guys. I picked up their ukulele article, and a company called Sutherland Wells. And Sutherland Wells it's owned by a man and woman, a husband and wife. They bought it from a woman who had bought it from the original owner. I guess there was a Sutherland and a Wells at some point. And I had heard about Sutherland Wells. I didn't know anything about them, other than I'd heard about them. And my impression of Sutherland Wells was that, they have this kind of like pencil or ink drawn logo that has a couple people that are sitting like in a piano room or something, and it looks super like old and like fancy, and I was like, it must be some kind of UK based like fancy finishing company that I can't afford. And they were there, and I was like, and I was talking to them, like, yeah, we're from Rhode Island. I was like, Rhode Island? I was like, I thought you were some fancy UK company. And they're like, no, we're just a fancy Rhode Island company. I was like, all right, on, man, that's great to see. So I was curious because they have something that their product is a polymerized tongue oil. So they're taking tongue oil, they're polymerizing like we talked about, and then they're mixing it with some kind of spirit to cut it again to make it easy to apply. And I was intrigued, and so they have this thing called botanicals, and this is their botanical sample can. This is a 4-ounce can of their polymerized tongue oil in a botanical formulation. The botanical means that they're using things like citrus peels, like orange peels, lemon peels that are from, like, let's say orange juice production. They have, what are they doing with the peels? They take that and they make it into products, and one of those products I think is a citrus-based oil or a citrus-based solvent that as a byproduct from the peels, and they're using that as the blending component, and it actually creates a very nice smelling application. And it's really easy to put on. You just kind of wipe it on, wait 15 minutes, wipe it off. And I was like, oh, that's right up my alley. And you don't have to be too fancy. You can just use blue shop towels like this. I just tear them up like this because I'm cheap and I don't want to, the shop towel rolls are like $3, and I'm being cheap by balling this up. But, I take it and I just kind of dab it, and then I will apply it like this, and it goes on really thin. It's really thin coats and easy. And so this chair was done with the botanical. Actually, with this, I did the fourth and final coat last night, and I think it's looking really, really nice. So the grain is now this particular chair is made from cherry, this table is made from cherry as well. But it's different. This cherry is actually about a mile from my house where I am now. This cherry is actually from Pennsylvania somewhere. I got this cherry from a place called Groff and Groff up in Corryville, Pennsylvania. If you are looking for a great, lumber mill, Groff and Groff is excellent. They have a wide selection and very reasonable prices. Another place that I've been doing a lot of business with lately is at Hearn Hardwoods up in Oxford, Pennsylvania. At one point in time, Rick Hearn was telling me a few months ago, he was like, at one point in time, the owner of Groff, the father or the grandfather of Groff, was business partners with Hearn. It was Groff and Hearn, or Hearn and Groff, something like that. And then when one of the Groffs passed away, they decided to go their own ways. And so there's Hearn over in Oxford, and there is Groff over in Porterville. They're both excellent sources for lumber and wood and slabs and anything you need. The reason that I go to Hearn partially is because they're the only place that does koa, at least in this region. So I go there and buy koa. Really, I'm buying koa cutoffs because koa at $40 to $50 a board foot is way so expensive for me to go out and make projects with. Like if I made this chair uses this. I made this chair from 6/4 FAS cherry, so really clean, clear cherry. Used 8 board. I bought 8 board feet of cherry, 6/4 cherry to make this chair. I still end up with like an extra board foot, so really it's 7 board feet. So at $50 a board foot, 35, it would be $350 in wood. Holy moly! Is that right? Am I doing that right? 7 times 5, 35. Yeah, $350. Yeah, that's right. That $350 in wood, at least $400 in wood, and like, and then if you muck it up, but actually, that's not. That's still less than the Festool 1010 router. All right, what else did I tell you? So those are the different finishes. This is the botanical. So one thing about, and I do like the Sutherland. I've really come to like the Sutherland. I'm resisting the temptation for it to become my finish of choice, maybe even over the tongue oil, because it's just so easy to use. Like if I wanted to do 4 coats of finish on this chair, it would, if I wanted to really push it, it would take me 5 days, because 24 hours, you gotta wait 24 hours between each coat, and then you can reapply, and then wait another 24 hours. Where this one would take at least a month, because you gotta wait a week, a minimum week, maybe a month and a half, out to 2 months. So yeah, it just takes longer with the tongue oil, where this really cuts it down. So yeah, the botanicals. But really, what I wanted, the point that I really wanted to push on you today for finishing, and there's so many more finishes out there, is to go out and try different finishes. Like when I started, with doing the woodworking thing, I wanted to try as many finishes as I possibly could. So I was interested to go out and buy some tried and true, and this can is almost gone. So I've used a lot of it. I used a lot of it on the different shop projects here in the shop to build, and I wanted to use, and that's what I used. Oh, that's what I used. I think I used the General. I used the Mohawk on the planer cart, and I used the General on. Oh, I used it on tool cart. I used this on tool cart, and then the rest of the worktops I used tried and true. What I mean by all this is I tried different finishes to see how you like them, if you like them, and I made some samples. Like this is some oak. I think this is red oak, and so what I did is I basically made these, I just had these cutoffs, and so instead of tossing them or burning them, I kind of like made them and just kind of coated them. This one was white oak coated with Osmo Poly X, right? And then I used tried and true on this one, same wood, but just, kind of like little reference pieces. This is the Howard Mahogany finish, and then this one is the Howard board oil. So very, very, just little tiny, you can just play around and make your own little samples, but you can try different things, and I think you should try different things. You go out and try different finishes, and one of the nice things is that, if you have a local woodworking shop, or even online, like places like Rockler and Woodcraft will have monthly sales where they have specials on everything. Like right now, or last month, at Woodcraft they had the Wood River tongue oil on sale at a discount. So I had this, and I still hadn't used this, but I was like, I better buy more because it's on sale. So I bought this. Why did I buy this? I don't know. I probably should return it and get something else. Maybe I'll do that tomorrow. Like this month, they have, I think it's Osmo. I think the Osmo is on sale this month. I think I just saw that. And then, the other stuff is, they're all kind of like, the tried and true things like $40 for this pint can. The Osmo is like $20 to $30 for this tiny can. It's not terribly cheap, but you know, it goes a long way, and I think they're really nice finishes. I think maybe price-wise, I think General's probably one of the more reasonable prices. We also have the Botanicals. So the Botanicals from Sutherland Wells. This sample size cost me $16 at the show, and I was like, man, $16. But you know, I was like, oh, let's give it a try, and I really have come to like it. And so I liked it so much, I went out and bought a quart, which costs $70. So $70 for a quart. One of the things about these finishes, though, one thing to think about, like especially with these mineral finishes, you want to seal them as well as you can and try to get as much air out of it as possible, so that you don't, because what happens is it will gel, it will kind of harden and create, like it'll basically become a gelatin, and you don't want that, because you lose the finish at that point. So try to keep the air out of it. A lot of people will use argon gas, like they sell this thing called Bioxy or whatever it is. Basically, it's a gas that they really had started marketing for the wine people, because you know, when the wine people wanted to protect their wine, they would have this can of argon gas with a little tube like the ones with WD-40, and you put that inside the bottle, and that pushes the oxygenated air out and replaces with the argon gas, because the argon gas is heavier. And the idea is the same thing with this. Like you'll put before you put your lid completely on, you'll hit it with the argon gas. Argon gas displaces the regular air that we're breathing, and it helps to give your can longevity. Now, if you have something like water locks that comes in cans like this, what we've always done is that as we consume the water locks through the can, we just squeeze it down to, you know, to remove that airspace in the can itself. These are not so suited for that kind of purpose. What you might do, like what I might do with this Botanicals, is maybe get a funnel and then portion it out, some of it into here, so that I'll just work out of this rather than working out of this. Where are we with time? I don't know. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask them. Cosman's with us. Art Lawn Spray, brother. Did I say something else? I don't know. I might have. But these are two cherry finishes with tung oil and with the Botanicals from Sutherland. I really like it. So when I put the fourth coat on last night, I was looking at it today. It looked darker, like it darkened a little bit. It was pretty light yesterday. I would love to have it be this kind of reddish dark, but it's just a different part of the tree, so that's not going to happen. Another thing that I've used here is like this chair. I finished in this one uses Osmo Poly-X, and it's pretty good too. I mean, it's a nice finish. I don't think that I sanded and finished sanding the chair as well as I should have. Like I can feel a little snag right there, so I may have to actually sand it back down and do it. But this is another version of the chair. This is actually local walnut, again from the local farm here. I like to work with local woods as much as possible. Ideally, I would like to just stick with local woods. I mean, I'll still do occasional things with like Hawaiian koa or whatever like fancies the boat. But the idea is to, you know, make furniture with a lot of the local woods here. So that's the Osmo, which, you know, looks great too. Like is there much difference? I don't know. And since we're talking about the Sutherland Wells, this was a chair that I made for my cousin that he still has to come to pick out. But this has 4 coats as well of the Sutherland Botanicals. And I think this is walnut. And I personally think it turned out very nicely. Very, very nicely with the Sutherland Wells Botanical High Luster. I like the High Luster. With the High Luster, they have some additives. If you wanted to reduce the luster and make it more satiny, you can add, I forgot, if you read their website, they'll tell you, but you add something to it and you can reduce the luster, but if you get the more satin, you cannot increase the luster. So I figured I'll get the high luster in case I ever want to go in the other direction. In this particular version of the chair, it's not all cut lumber. I actually used a slab for this, and I tried playing around with the live edge on the back. So I thought that might be kind of interesting. And these are what I'm calling the Alexis chairs, and they named after my niece, who's a cellist, and it's a musician's chair that was originally inspired by Mira Nakashima's design for the Concordia chamber players. Hers, this chair pulls a lot of design cues from that chair. And I had my niece come in and play on it and, give me her feedback of what she liked, what she didn't like, where she wanted things to be changed to more meet her needs as a player. And it's really designed as a musician's chair so that, and that's part of the reason why the chair is flat instead of sculpted, because this allows more expressiveness from the player. They can move, around the chair as they want, and that's the big thing for them. They can move, and that was part of the whole thing, was that they could be much more expressive with it. And it's about 17.5 inches total height, or the seat height. And then we worked on the back to get the slope here a little more worked out, and then also the height of the actual backrest and the size of the backrest. The original size of the backrest was much larger, but that kind of got in the way. And it turns out that at least for some cellists or a lot of musicians, they don't necessarily need a back they don't need to lean back on a back during performing. What they need a back to lean on is during in between sets, in between songs, as they're waiting for, let's say, the conductor to cue up the next song. Then they can lean back a little bit, and so it doesn't have to be such a big deal. There is a point of dimension return. I do have one version of the back that is very tiny, that looks cool, and I thought it would be just right, but really it just kind of digs into your spine and is super uncomfortable, so I get rid of that. Now, speaking of being uncomfortable, one of the downsides of this particular style is that since it's a flat seat chair, it's not as comfortable for sitting in like marathon sessions. So if you want to sit for like 3, 4, 5 hours, this is going to be a little bit sore on the butt for you. So yeah. Oh, there we go. Cosman's here. Cosman says Bloxygen. I like that. What's the other comment here? Let me see. You take the chairs. I have not taken these chairs outside. I did build a version of this chair using something called thermal oak. And thermal oak is wood that's actually, it starts as urban lumber, meaning that they're harvesting the wood from trees in an urban environment, and they're reclaiming those trees and then milling them down, and then what they do is they put them through a heat treatment process. It's very similar to Japanese yakisugi, but they're not burning it outright. They're actually heating it in a kiln, in a high temperature kiln. I think they're heating it like 190 Celsius or 200 plus Celsius. And when they were describing it to me, I was like, oh, it sounds like coffee roasting to me, right? Which I totally can relate to. So you're taking a regular, let's say, oak that is, I don't know, 9, 10, 11% moisture content, and they're heating it up to the point where it becomes 2 to 3% moisture. So that you're driving it all out, and you're also changing the color of the wood. So for example, let's say the oak, let me find the sample that I have here. So this is thermal oak. Now it looks like walnut, right? Like it looks like and I was like kind of intrigued. I was like, oh, it looks like walnut. That's kind of interesting. But it's actually oak, and the reason that it's this color is because of the roasting process. So you kind of internally charred it, and then this is actually thermal pine, so that has a little bit deeper, more oaky kind of look to it. And it's really, it's mainly designed as a exterior cladding for, buildings. So part of the beauty of the thermal oak is that by heating it up to this point, it becomes naturally water resistant, fire resistant, and insect repellent. And that's really great for cladding. Maybe not so great for fine woodworking. Like I built a chair just like this out of it, and out of thermal oak, and it turned out it was thermal oak was interesting to work with because they've heated up to the point that it's 2 to 3 moisture content. It's very brittle. It's very dusty as you're cutting it. It's very the brittle. Like you can actually chip it. Like I've had it chip and break in spots. Like I broke the back part of it off, and I had to reglue it. Just because it doesn't have the resilience because it's basically damaged. Right? You've kind of damaged it, and as structurally I think you've compromised the structural integrity of the fibers of the wood because it's so roasted, it's so dry, and because it's so dry, it's very resistant to finishes. Like we said, it's water resistant, water repellent. So I put tung oil after I finished it. I put tung oil, and it took it from this color to like a jet black color. And basically, it just never really soaked in. It just kind of sat there, and like eventually, I had to scrape it all off and sand it back down, and then refinish it. And then one of the other downsides of it is that I'm using for the joinery. I'm actually using loose tenon, loose mortar and loose tenons here. Basically, the domino to join them. Number 10 dominoes to put the legs in, and then here this is just. Here it's just half lap joinery in the back, and it just glued up. And on regular wood it holds up very, very well. Where it doesn't hold, where on the thermal oak, all the joints failed. Everything failed. Everything came apart because the wood glue, the Type Bond 2, just wouldn't hold. There's nothing for it to grab onto. So I called up the company. I was like, "Hey man, what should I do?" And they're like, "Oh, you need to use Gorilla Glue." And I was like, "Oh, all right, Gorilla Glue it is." So I went and bought some Gorilla Glue, and I glued it up, and so far it's held up. And because Cosmin, you asked, that's the chair that I put outside, and that sits outside on the deck, exposed to the sunlight and getting abused. I never thought about putting these out there, like, to get that kind of sunbathing effect. Maybe I'll give one of them a try to see how it turns out. But I'm not really adverse to that. I mean, I do like the idea of like letting your chairs live or letting your furniture live in your house. It doesn't have to be, like a museum. I don't necessarily want the museum. Cosmin says, torrefied wood, eh? They do that to artificially age string instrument. Oh, really? I didn't know that. When you say string instrument, you mean like the soundboard part of it or like the fretboard part of it? That's interesting. I didn't know they did that. Maybe I'll take this cherry outside and get a tan and see what happens. We still have some months of sunlight left here in the Mid-Atlantic, so that's a good thing. The belly part. Oh, the part that goes against your belly. That's right. Okay. Gotcha. All right, what else do I have for you with finishing? I think that's pretty much all the finishes that I've used. Like I said, I haven't used Rubio Monocoat. I know that's the big thing for a lot of YouTubers out there. One of my buddies, Kevin, he's a very nice furniture maker. He runs a place called Alinea Workshop, like Alinea, Alinea Workshop on Instagram. If you're interested in checking out his work, he does very, very nice work. But he's a big Rubio Monocoat guy, and I'm maybe this weekend if I see him, I'll ask him more about the Rubio. I'm curious to know because I saw it at this store over yesterday or Wednesday. I was up at a place called Paul B. Hardware in Lidditz, Pennsylvania, and they had Rubio there, and I was like, man, it's so expensive. It's like $100 or whatever for the 2-part thing. I was like, do I want to spend that kind of money? No, I want to get a small, tiny sample and try that. Like this, like I got a small, tiny sample from Sutherland, and I was like, okay, I'll invest $16 and play with it for a few months, and then if I like it, I'll buy the big one. I don't have time with that, but I don't want to put like a whole bunch of money out. Like the Osmo, I bought the small Osmo. I got a big Osmo in the box. But I don't necessarily need to find more finishes. And but like I'm saying, that's my point, is really to go out and try different finishes for yourself and decide for yourself what you like, because what you find will work. Like for example, if I took this rock hard urethane varnish, I might hate the way that it would look on these Alexis chairs, but I would totally like it, maybe on a stringed instrument or something else that I'm working on, or like this table. Hopefully that table will turn out well and not too plasticky. What I don't really want to do is more plasticky kind of stuff. Like the one thing with the water locks. The water locks is kind of it becomes not plasticky, but it does become very thick on the wood. It does still retain natural feeling. It's not like epoxy, epoxy that you see on the river tables. That is basically laminating your wood in plastic. And I don't get me wrong, I've seen beautiful tables and I'm totally like, wow, that's just gorgeous, just gorgeous. But I'm personally not very interested in working with epoxy, just because it seems like a pain. Like you've got to build this frame and you're going to have leaks and you got to control so much about it. And like I just rather let the natural wood speak for itself. But that's a philosophy thing. It's not necessarily an edict kind of thing. The spoon. Sorry, I had violins. Oh, gotcha. Okay. Very good. All right. Well, that's kind of what I had prepared to talk about today. I don't really have much else to say. I'm working on. What am I working on here in the workshop? Nothing. Actually, I'm thinking about mallets. I was watching the Japanese. The Japanese carpenter guy, the young guy that has. That's like half Japanese, half American, and he's going around building buildings and with Japanese wood, Japanese joinery, and every once in a while could go to visit like Japanese tool shops and give tours of Japanese tool shops, and he was visiting this place called Dogenhu. I forgot the name of it already, but he was there, and there's this one moment that he shows these mallets, and I was like, I love the shape of the mallet, and basically it kind of looks like you took this piece of wood and you shoved a handle on it and you're maybe a little bit, maybe about this size, and you're beating things with it. And I was like, oh, that looks cool. So I've been thinking about that, and like I was thinking maybe I need to make that. And I've got some white oak cut off here from a slab that we were working with before that just haven't done anything with. So I was thinking, I can take this and make this into my mallet called Opus, or something like that. All right, so I guess that's going to be it for tonight. Thank you very much. It's a Friday night. You should be going out. I should be going out to the club and having a good time, but we're here pretending to have a good time. So thank you very much for tuning in. Glad to see all of you tonight. And if you're watching the replay, thank you very much for tuning in. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them down below and let me know that you're out there and I'm not all alone. But we'll be back again with more Woodshop Live in the future. Maybe next week will be a good time. So thanks for tuning in and see you next time.